Hey everyone, Niamoy. I hope you're doing good today. If not, remember it's okay to give your mom a hard time from just a little bit at least because she gave us a heck of a time when she was little. Dahi, I miss you so much, son. Your mother, your sisters, we all miss you and can't wait till you can come home. Got to talk to you a little bit today, and you've been having issues with formula, but that's not surprising. But don't worry, soon, your mother's gonna be driving all the way the three some odd hours it takes to get to the hospital, and make sure you get your milk that you need. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the story. Once again, we're gonna continue reading from Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan. The story this time we're going to read is Sir Lancelot of the Lake. Now, we've come a long way in the stories, so this one should be interesting since Sir Lancelot or was alleged to be one of the greatest knights in King Arthur's court. It starts off with an illustration of King Arthur and his party coming across a wounded knight. Okay, Sir Lancelot of the Lake. Not long after Sir Gawain had returned from his adventures with the Green Knight, the wise sage Merlin had sad tidings for King Arthur. "It is time for me to leave," he said. "I must go now and sleep my long sleep until the day dawns when I shall awake again." "But how will I manage without your wise words?" Arthur asked in alarm. "Can you not stay longer?" "No, such is my destiny," Merlin replied. "Henceforth you must stand alone for the glory of Logres and show your worth as a king." Thereupon Merlin walked slowly through the hushed hall and out into the night. The mistress of the Isle of Avalon, the Lady Nimue, was waiting at the edge of the forest. Without a word, she led the way deeper and deeper into the forest until they came at last to North Wales, or Gwynedd, where Pant and Elaine were king and queen. They spent the night in the royal castle, and before departing, Merlin said to Queen Elaine, "You have a son now. You have a son known as Lancelot of the Lake, because the Lady of the Lake stole him as a baby and kept him hidden in her underwater kingdom for several years. I would like to give a message to him." When Merlin saw the fair young man, he bade him ride to Camelot before the next festival of Whitsuntide. He was to inform King Arthur that it was Merlin's final wish that King Arthur make him a knight. That said, Merlin departed and was never seen again. Some say he was taken by the mistress of Avalon to a cave beneath her lake and sleeps on in eternal slumber. He will wake again, they say, when Britain is in mortal danger from some foreign foe. Meanwhile, on the eve of Whitsun, King Arthur and a party of his knights were hunting in the forest when they chanced upon a wounded knight lying face down on the damp earth and groaning. As they turned him over, they saw a broken lance protruding from his head. "Well, that's impressive to survive. Sure beats an arrow to the knee." "Tell me, sir, tell me, sir," said Arthur gently, "should I fetch you a doctor, or perchance a priest?" "Neither," said the wounded knight. "I am trying to get to King Arthur's court, where I may be cured, but not by prayers or leeches. The Lady Nimue, mistress of the Isle of Avalon, has instructed me to seek there, the bravest knight in all Britain. Her first deed of knight his first deed of knighthood will be to draw out this lance and heal my wound." At that, King Arthur beckoned all his knights within the hunting party to try to heal the wound, but none could do so. "Tomorrow is the first day of Whitsuntide," said Arthur, "when all the knights of the Round Table will gather at Camelot to renew their vows. If this knight of whom you speak is truly from my court, he should be present, and you will find him." The wounded knight was gently lifted and placed in a litter and taken to Camelot. Next day all the knights assembled, each in his own seat at the Round Table. After each knight had stood, recounted his deeds throughout the year, and renewed his vow of knighthood, he then laid his hand upon the wounded man. Yet, strangely, none could heal him. Could the Lady of Nimue's words be false? Just then a trumpet call was heard, and into the hall came the Lady Nimue herself with the squire dressed in white. He was so tall and fair and handsome that all the ladies present blushed a gentle pink, while all colors drained from Queen Guinevere's face at his appearance. As their eyes met, the fair-haired man stopped dead, his heart pierced so deeply that he vowed then and there to serve no other lady but King Arthur's wife. The Lady Nimue's voice cut across their private thoughts. "I bring you news of the wise sage Merlin's last request," she said, "before I lead him to his eternal resting place. Merlin sought out this young man and bade him come to you this Whitsuntide to seek a knighthood. This is Lancelot, called of the Lake. He is the son of King Pant and Queen Elaine of Gwynedd. Look, his name grows now in golden letters upon the empty chair beside the seat known as Perilous." Arthur rose and advanced towards the youth, drew out his sword Excalibur, and dubbed the young man a knight. All the while, the wounded knight had lain upon a stretcher, looking on in pain and hope at the fair newcomer. And when Arthur had regained his seat, the Lady Nimue led Sir Lancelot to the wounded man. At once the new-made knight bent forward and gently drew out the lance head. As soon as the wound was clear, it straightway closed up and gave no more pain. The Lady Nimue smiled and said quietly, so that only a few took note of her words, "Just once again you shall heal a sorely wounded knight, Sir Lancelot, but that deed will mark the passing of this fair fellowship." King Arthur, overjoyed to have a knight sent by Merlin, did not ponder on Nimue's words. At first, not all the knights at Camelot were pleased that an untried squire who had done no deed nor experienced brave adventures should receive high honor. But it was not long before their tongues were silenced, for Sir Lancelot was to gain the greatest reputation of any knight at court and be the most famous knight in Christendom. No other knight could equal him in the trials of strength and valor, in chivalry and nobility of mind. But although Lancelot was the bravest knight of all, he was not the best. There was a single stain upon his character which marred his knighthood, for Lancelot loved Guinevere, and all his deeds of valor were done to honor her. Their love was to prove their undoing. So, there is a lot of belief that Merlin is actually what was one of the old world druids, and he was a wise man, like they said, had the ability of foresight, although from various myths it's all related to magic, but there were some historical debate as to whether Merlin truly lived, much like King Arthur is debated on. And if he did live, it was believed that Merlin was a druid or a wise man of the pagans throughout Britain and the Celtic world. So I find it interesting that he's led away by one of the ladies, the Lady of Avalon, which is, if I remember, one of the ladies of the lakes. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Fadahi and Neamor, I'm pretty sure neither of you really know much about traditional Celtic or Gaelic folklore, but the Lady of the Lake were often viewed kind of as one of the she. When I say she, that I'm referring to, well, what modern times are called fairies, elves, and things like that. Now the she, they have two courts: the light, or what translates over to the dark court, and the light court. But anyways, I find it interesting that a druid who is supposed to be wise in all the world, both natural and supernatural, would go away with one of the fairies, because a lot of traditional Celtic folklore teaches you that the fairies are not friendly for the most part. They are not kind to humans. They love their games and they live on a completely different plane. Um, One great example of some of the darker fairies is the story of Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin was often referred to as one of the darker fays, kind of like trolls and such. But anyways, I digress. Don't trust the fairies, for they'll steal away your children and leave a changeling in its stead. In traditional Gaelic and Celtic beliefs, that when what was a good child, all of a sudden in the middle of the night, attitude completely changes. Probably what we would call like the terrible twos and all those fun names for children when they decide to go kind of crazy and test boundaries. When a child who was peaceful, calm, and everything, all of a sudden started to become colicky, crying, throwing tantrums, extremely aggressive, angry. It was often believed that that child was switched with a changeling. Right. Now, let us continue the story of Lancelot. That was a nice little random interlude. Upon one Whitsunday, as the knights sat feasting, a holy man came into the hall, seeking alms. Looking round the table, he noticed the sole empty place, the perilous seat, between Sir Lancelot and Sir Tristram, and he asked King Arthur why it was unoccupied. "Only on pain of death," replied King Arthur, "shall that place be taken, save by the knight for whom it is intended." "And do you know who he is?" the holy man inquired. "That we do not," King Arthur said, "but all will be revealed in time." "Perhaps I can help you," the man continued. "I know that the best knight of all is not yet born, nor are his parents yet acquainted with one another. However, this I know, and I will relate. He will come into the world less than 1 year from now, and he will one day sit in the perilous seat and gain the Holy Grail." With that, the old man returned and left the court without another word. Oh. I might have to stop doing voices for a while. Man. Not long after this event, Sir Lancelot rode off on his adventure and came in in time to the waist. Excuse me. I ate popcorn earlier and I feel like I'm coughing up kernels. Alright, let's try that again. So Lancelot rode off on his adventures and came in time to the wastelands left of Balin's fateful deed. He rode slowly through the devastated countryside and finally came to a small town, its streets lined with cheering people who cried out as he passed. "Welcome, Sir Lancelot of the Lake, flower of all knighthood. We beg you, save Our Lady in the tower." Turning to the town folks, he said, "Tell me how I can help you, and I shall do my best." "Ah, Sir Lancelot," their spokesman said, "within that evil tower is imprisoned a fair maiden. She has lain in pain and torment these 5 winters past. She was made captive by the evil Morgana Le Fay, out of jealous hatred, because she was the fairest lady in the land, fairer by far than the evil queen herself. So Morgana put her in a bath of scalding water which, by enchantment, does not kill her, yet keeps out all who would effect a rescue. Though she is in torment, she does not die." "Has no one tried to save her?" asked Sir Lancelot. "Sir Gawain was here, but could not succeed," they told him. "Then I may not either," he replied. "Sir," the spokesman said, "Our Lady may be saved only by the bravest knight in all the world that we know. He must take her by the hand to break the spell. That knight is you, Sir Lancelot." "If what you say is true," Lancelot said, "then lead me to this tower." Up the hillside went Sir Lancelot, and while the townsfolk held back in fear, he boldly approached the gloomy tower, forced open the oaken doors, and climbed the steep stone steps to the topmost chambers. Side note, for those of you who haven't watched any of the earlier King Arthur videos, Morgana Le Fay is actually the brother of Arthur, one who tried killing King Arthur multiple times and failed on multiple attempts. However, he loved his sister dearly. So instead of killing her, she was banished. That fateful bower was as hot as any furnace, and through the clouds of steam he dimly saw the poor, tormented maiden bound within her scalding bath. Choking from the heat, he wrapped his cloak about his face and stumbled forward, step by step, until he reached the boiling bath. Then, with a mighty effort, he reached forward and seized the maiden by the hand. At once, the enchantment ended, and there stepped from the bath, unharmed and as naked as a needle, the fairest damsel he had ever seen. She was even lovelier than Queen Guinevere herself. When she had dressed herself in clean garments from a big stone chest, she let him lead her from the tower, to the happy cheering of the people. How overjoyed they were to see the lovely maid again. After they had thanked Sir Lancelot most warmly for delivering the lady from her torment, the townfolk once more beseeched him, "Sir Knight, since you have saved this lady, we ask you now to perform one final deed, to deliver us from a serpent that dwells nearby in a deep hole beneath the great stone. He creeps out at night and steals our sheep and even our dear children." Sir Lancelot took up sword and shield and said, "Then take me to this stone, and I shall do my best." When he came to the stone, he was surprised to see inscribed upon these words, "A leopard of noble blood shall come this way and slay the serpent, and this leopard shall begot a lion that will surpass all other knights." Puzzled at the strange inscription, Lancelot gathered up his strength and pushed aside the great stone. Out sprang a monster serpent, breathing fire so fierce it scorched his armor. It scorched his armor black, and snapping at him with its evil fangs. But Lancelot was ready to defend himself with his trusty sword, using his great shield to avoid the blast of fire. All through the day the battle raged, and only a cool dusk was falling did Sir Lancelot get the better of the serpent and cut off its scaly head. Once again, the people of the town cheered and cheered their hero savior, and waiting for him as he turned wearily from his fight was the maimed King Pellam, that same king whom Balin had wounded with the fateful spear, and whose castle had been laid waste. King Pellam was the father of the maiden whom Lancelot had saved. In gratitude, he now led the weary knight to the one remaining tower of his ruined castle, where he might rest and refresh himself. "Lancelot of the Lake," said King Pellam later, as they were sitting at a dining table, "I am a descendant of Joseph of Arimathea, who was, as you well know, a disciple of Jesus Christ. On the evening of the crucifixion, he and Nicodemus took down Christ's body from the cross, and he it was who brought to Britain the Holy Grail, the cup used by our Lord at the Last Supper, the cup used too by Joseph to catch Christ's blood when he was crucified. Now watch, keep silent, and you shall see a miraculous thing." Presently, as they sat in silence, a dove flew in at the window, bearing in its beak a golden censer. As it flew above the table, there came such a scent in the air as if all the spices in the world had been scattered around them. All of a sudden, the table was filled with all manners of food and drink. There's a picture of Sir Lancelot fighting the fire-breathing serpents. Yes? Come in.
Hi, the king. Hi,
So,
Anora?
Neomor.
Neomor.
Then, as they dined in silent awe, a damsel, passing fair and young, entered the chamber, bearing a golden cup between her tender hands. It seemed to be filled with a light so pure and bright that it hurt the eyes to behold it. As she passed, the king fell to his knees and prayed devoutly. Lancelot, too, hid his face in prayer as the girl walked round the table and from the hall. In the hushed moments that followed, both men could find no words to speak. Then, at last, Sir Lancelot whispered, "What may all this mean?" "We have been granted a vision," said the king, "of the most precious gift known to man. That cup filled with the blinding light is the Holy Grail of which I spoke. The cup is now lost. No one knows where it lies. One day, all the knights of the Round Table at Camelot will go in search of it, but one knight only is fated to crown his quest successfully." King Pellam knew more of the future than he told to Lancelot. He perceived that his daughter Elaine, she whom Lancelot had saved from her long enchantment, would presently bear a child by Sir Lancelot. And this child was to be Sir Galahad, destined to be the best knight in the world, who one day would gain the Holy Grail. Sir Lancelot remained several days at the ruined castle, passing the time in pleasant conversation with King Pellam's daughter Elaine. Although the lovely Elaine had fallen in love with her savior Lancelot, the noble knight's heart remained unyielding, for he kept fate with the fair Guinevere. All this King Pellam saw clearly, though he knew not how the future would come about. So the king confided his anxieties to a wise woman at his court, one Dame Bryson, and she, being one of the greatest enchantress that was living then, instructed the king as follows: "Sire, the loyal Sir Lancelot loves no lady in all the world but Queen Guinevere. Therefore we must act with guile. I will use my powers to ensure the prophecies are fulfilled." So Dame Brisson conjured up her magic and had a golden ring brought by envoys to Sir Lancelot. When he set eyes on it, his heart welled up within him, for he was sure it was the one Queen Guinevere always wore. "Where is my lady?" he asked excitedly. "In the castle of Case," replied the envoy, "but 5 miles hence. She wishes you to come just as soon as you are able." In the meantime, Dame Bryson at once, accord with King Pellam, had dispatched Elaine secretly to the castle of Case, escorted by 25 good knights. Thus, when Lancelot arrived at the castle, he was received worshipfully by people who, seemingly, were the attendants of Queen Guinevere. On asking where the queen was, he was informed that, the hour being late, my lady was abed. She had asked that they said for Sir Lancelot to go straight to her. First, however, he was to be warmed by a goblet of strong wine. When he had swallowed the wine, he felt his head whirl and his body lighten, so that he quite forgot his knight's oath to King Arthur, and hastened to the darkened bedchamber of Queen Guinevere. Elaine, for such it was, sighed with pleasure at having Sir Lancelot finally in her arms. The two lovers lay together till dawn. Even then the room was cast in darkness, since all the windows had been covered so that the light of day should not shine through. When Sir Lancelot rose from the bed and drew back the curtains, he saw all too clearly that he had been deceived. In place of Guinevere, there lay the Lady Elaine. Mad with remorse and shame, he cried, "Alas, that my life should wither so! I deserve to die for betraying my oath of loyalty to dear Queen Guinevere. But first, traitress, I shall kill you with my own bare hands." The fair Elaine sprang from the bed and knelt before him, pleading, "Courteous knight, Sir Lancelot, pray have mercy on me, for I am destined to be the mother of him who shall be the noblest knight in all Christendom, our son Galahad." Confused and angry still, Lancelot was somewhat chastened by the maiden's words. "I will forgive this deception," he said at last. "I know your aims were noble. It was Dame Bryson that enchanted me, and I vow to seek her out and cut her head off for her witchcraft. Never was a knight so ill used as I this night. Now farewell, Elaine. Though I spare your life, I never wish to see your face again." As Sir Lancelot prepared to leave, the maiden wept and clung to him. "Gentle knight," she cried, "I beseech you, do not be so cruel. I beg you not to banish me from your sight, for I love you with all my heart." Sir Lancelot was in torment. He had betrayed his vow of loyalty to Queen Guinevere, dishonored his oath of knighthood, and broken the heart of poor Elaine. His head whirled, his heart ached, and his mind was in turmoil. Finally, overcome by emotion, he fell down in a faint upon the floor. Shady misdeeds are afoot. When Lancelot finally came to, he acted like a madman, leaping out of the window into the garden below, clad only in his nightshirt. He fell into a bed of thorn bushes, scrambled up thorns, and bleeding about the face and body, and ran like a demented soul into the forest depths. Now, I can personally attest that running through a batch of thorns is not fun. On our property, we have a lot of hickory that lines the creek, and sometimes I have to go back there to chase the dogs whenever they get out. And running through thorned, not fun. So, and there he wandered alone for 2 whole years, suffering cold, hunger, and thirst, woe and pain aplenty, his wits quite scattered to the wind. Though many hunting parties were sent out from Camelot to search for him, no one ever found a trace of the poor Sir Lancelot, not even such skilful knights as Sir Bors, Sir Lionel, or Sir Percival of Gales. In the meantime, the fair Elaine was delivered of a bonny child, who was christened Galahad. He grew up looking after with great devotion by his mother in the ruined castle of King Pellam. One day Soon after the boy's first birthday, Elaine and her maid were wandering in the castle grounds when they came upon a fair-bearded, ragged man sleeping by the wall. At once Elaine recognized the half-naked, dirty creature as Galahad's father, Sir Lancelot. "Hush! Do not wake him," she told her maids, soft tears falling from her eyes in pity for her long-lost love. "Let no one touch him until I return." With that, she ran wildly to her father and told him of Lancelot's presence. At once the king summoned Dame Brisson, and 4 trusted servants then hurried with his daughter to the well. "Sire," said Dame Brisson on seeing the slumbering figure, "we must be careful how we deal with him, for this poor knight has lost his wits. If we awake him rudely, he may rise up and slay us all. Give me time to cast a spell upon him, and within the hour he shall awake quiet and peaceful." You want to say hi to your brother?
Daddy, I miss you. Dad, I don't feel that good.
You don't feel that good. Try to blow your nose in, okay? And where do you hurt?
My arm and my leg.
Your arms and legs and your hand. It sounds like you haven't been drinking enough water today. Have you drank any? Go drink some water. You gotta remember, dehydration can be very dangerous. And if you start feeling body aches and headaches and stuff like that, it's could be one of the first signs of being dehydrated. As soon as the spell was cast, the 4 servants picked up the sleeping knight and carried him into the castle one remaining tower. And in less than an hour, Lancelot awoke, groaned, and sighed, complaining that he still felt mighty sore. But he was quiet and gentle, and his eyes did not burn with madness. As his calm gaze alighted on King Pellam and Elaine, he felt somehow ashamed and said, "Oh Lord Jesus, how did I come to be here?" "Sir," said Elaine, "we found you sleeping by the castle well, clean out of your mind, for more than a fortnight." Sir Lancelot lay upon the bed, unable to stir for soreness. Elaine, meanwhile, tended to his every need until he was well again. Then one day he told her, "Dear Elaine, I must away since my heart is turned only towards Queen Guinevere. I love her now with an even fiercer passion, and miss her gently. I am deeply sorry to have wronged you. Pray pardon me now for leaving, but I must depart." "But what would you have me do?" Uh, I skipped a paragraph. Alright. "Oh, Lancelot," cried the fair Elaine, "I would live and die with you, and if by living I cannot please you, then know well, dear heart, that I would rather die for your sake. Wherever you are, my lord Sir Lancelot, doubt not that I shall be with you in life or death. Suffer me not to die for your love." "But what would you have me do?" asked Lancelot. "I would have you be my husband. Fair damsel, I thank you for your kindness," said he, "but truly I am not cast ever to be a married man." Despite her tears and her entreaties, Sir Lancelot tore himself away, mounted his horse, and rode off to Camelot. And when King Arthur learned that Lancelot was back, whole and sound in mind and limb, he was overjoyed, as well as the Knights of the Round Table. As for Queen Guinevere, having heard of Lancelot's act of faithlessness, she was very angry and would not speak to him at all. Although Lancelot tried by every means to explain his story to the queen, she would not hear him. This is a picture of when Elaine found Lancelot by the well. In the meantime, the fair Elaine suffered such torment both day and night that she never slept, nor ate, nor drank. She thought of nothing but her beloved Lancelot, the father of her child. When she had thus pined away for 6 long days, she became so feeble that it was clear the end was near. It was then she called her father to her and gave him a letter she had written and beseeched him to watch over her until she died. "While my body is warm," she said, "put this letter in my right hand and tie it fast. Hand it to letter until my hand grows cold. Then dress me in my fairest clothes and place me in a barge, all covered in black samite clothing, in black samite cloth. Let the boat float down the river to Camelot. That, dear father, is my dying wish." Faithfully, her grieving father carried out her last request. Not long after, King Arthur and Queen Guinevere were speaking together at a window of the castle Camelot when they noticed a black barge floating downstream on the river. Jeez. See. Not long after, King Arthur and Queen Guinevere were speaking together at the window of the castle Camelot when they noticed a black barge floating downstream of the river. Forthwith, the king dispatched Sir Kay, his steward, to find out what is meant. When Sir Kay returned, it was clear from his pale countenance that something untoward had happened. "I found the fairest corpse lying cold within a royal bed," he said quietly. "The dead maid is so richly dressed she looks like a child of a royal house." Thereupon Arthur and Guinevere and many of their knights went down to the riverside, where the black barge was now moored fast. And there they saw the most lovely maiden lying in rich silken bed, wearing the finest clothes and jewelry. Her fair face bore a look so sad it pierced the heart of all those who looked upon her. Noticing the letter in her right hand, the queen said, "I feel sure that letter will help unfold the mystery." Taking up the missive, the king returned to the castle hall, and, when all the knights were assembled, he broke the seal and read the letter out so that all might hear. "Most noble knight, Sir Lancelot, while living I loved you more dearly than any maid has ever loved a man. Though I am dead, my love lives on. I beg you to pray for my soul and bury my cold corpse. This is my last request to you. I die true to my one and only love, as God is my witness, Elaine." As Sir Lancelot heard each word of the letter, he covered his face in his hand and wept for shame and pity. "Oh, my Lord Arthur," he cried, "God knows I did not want the maid to die. She was kind and good to me, and much I owed her, but she loved me out of measure with a love I could not repay. If you had shown her bounty and gentleness," said the queen, "it might have spared her life." "Madam," said Lancelot, "she wished to be my wife, and that I could not grant her. One cannot be forced to love. Love has to come out of the heart, not out of obligation." An awkward hush fell upon the court as each man cast down his eyes. Early next morning, with great solemnity, the Lady Elaine was buried. Sir Lancelot himself supervised the ceremony, and all the knights of the Round Table paid their respects to the dead Elaine. When it was over, the queen sent for Lancelot and begged forgiveness for her early ire and needless envy. "Whatever remorse and sorrow I endure," he said softly, "I do so silently. Although I sinned, I did so sullenly from my love for you." And it was to be the great love between Guinevere and Sir Lancelot from which one day would grow the seeds of hate and envy that would destroy the glory that was King Arthur's court. Whole lot of foreshadowing there. Alright, so that is the end of that current tale of Sir Lancelot. I hope you enjoyed it. Um, Once again, I'm reading Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan, illustrated by Victor Ambrose. Oh, I realized I don't think I showed you that last picture. Okay. Nope, that's not it. So let's like almost say I promise. That is a picture of Elaine on her death barge with uh, with the note inscription. I hope you enjoyed it. I know sometimes some of these older stories talk to about stuff. I reference things that most of the times parents feel slightly uncomfortable talking with their children. But you have to remember, this was back in the early 80s when things were a little bit less pious, for lack of better words. Or yeah, prudent? Prudish? Either way, some of the old books approaches subjects that a lot of parents nowadays would feel uncomfortable with talking to their children about. However, they do go about it in a wholesome way, I guess, for lack of better terms. It's not in your face like a lot of movies and shows show nowadays. Yes, your sister's creeping again in the doorway. Okay. Do you want to tell your brother good night and tell your cousin good night or good day whenever they watch this video?
Who knows? Night, Dahi. Good morning or good night, Niamore.
You are a horrible cousin.
Yes, I am.
You bring dishonor. Dishonor on your cow. Dishonor on your family.
When I get a cow, I'll make sure to tell him that.
Yeah, your mother's trying to convince me. I'm gonna work out some deal to get your mother a cow eventually.
Dishonor on that cow then.
Yes, dishonor on the future cow. Hey, did he love you? We miss you. Niamore, I hope you've been enjoying the story. And do me a favor, give your mom a little bit of a hard time. As for anyone else who might be watching this, I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you again to the staff at the hospital. Thank you so much. Everything that Children Mercy does is, quite frankly, a miracle. Thank you again.